Hi, this is the online content for your Social Work 4020 course, Integrated Social Work Practice for Social Justice. This is week 5, Framing the Field Experience. I'd like for you to open up the Word document, which is a worksheet, Framing the Field Experience. And hopefully you've already read the Chapter 3 of the Successful Internship, which we made available to you. Take a look at the worksheet and think about what we're asking you to do. Really looking at what you like and dislike within your internship, and kind of scan down the page. Maybe pause this, and when you're done looking at the worksheet, come on back and we'll talk about some of the concepts in this theory. The theory that we're using to talk about your adjustment to your internship is from a book called The Successful Internship by Schweitzer and King, and it's really an integrated approach to field problem identification and resolution. The key here is the theory is based on the idea there will be problems in field and that they can be resolved. We feel that this model also serves you well for your adjustment to school and really works in many situations when you're adjusting to a new job. So it's a valuable theory to understand and kind of remember as you're moving through your process. The theory is rooted in the work of David Kolb and John Dewey, who are educational theorists. Kolb's idea is that experiential learning needs time for everyone to reflect on what's happened. So for every concrete experience, you need to reflect on it, have some theoretical or abstract discussion about it, and then integrate that new learning and try it again in active experimentation. And so this can go round and round for every experience that you have that you want to learn from and integrate into your practice. Dewey's ideas are really about the attitudes of being an experiential learner, and he talks about open-mindedness, open-heartedness, and taking responsibility. Open-mindedness is really just having a mind that can hear new ideas, that doesn't have to be right, that can challenge your own thinking, really, and to be patient with the thinking of others. Open-heartedness is about needing to be present rather than judging, allowing yourself to be fully available to critique, to learning, and trusting that the situation is going to turn out for your best learning interests. Responsibility is looking at the role that you play rather than judging or blaming others, but taking responsibility for the part in the issues that you can control. In terms of the developmental stages of this adjustment, we talk about anticipation coming first, the what ifs, hopes and fears coexisting, and typically people move into disillusionment when they get to their placement and they realize it isn't exactly what they'd hoped for, and kind of reconciling whether or not it's going to be a good fit. And usually the only way to get through that feeling of being disillusioned is to confront it, and by that we mean naming what's going on, and this worksheet we've provided will hopefully help you to do that. Confronting the situation means taking responsibility for your pieces of it, but also communicating what your feelings are. Talk directly with your field instructor, and if that is too uncomfortable, we have a field liaison who is more than willing and able to help you sort through how you could have that conversation or even support you in that conversation. The sooner this happens, the longer the period of competence will be, where you feel like you're in your internship, you're there to learn, you know what the reality is, but you're willing to work with it. And typically that's when growing and learning and becoming a part of the agency really occurs. Since it is a temporary experience, though, culmination looms, and ending it is often takes a couple of months out of the internship, because you have to think about what's next, who will take over your work projects, and people have a variety of feelings here. They may be sad to leave the internship, or they may be really excited about getting done with it, and all of these feelings need to be taken into account. This cycle can repeat itself throughout the year many times over with new responsibilities or with changes in your coursework, such as every quarter you may have another bout with this cycle. And we feel that if you're able to name it, it becomes easier to manage it. The first stage, anticipation stage, is the what ifs. And typically we have a mixture of excitement and anxiety, your hopes and your fears. And we want you to know it's very normal to question your own authority in the situation, to question the authority of your supervisor, to feel like you're not sure what is happening with the expectations. And it's normal to feel one day, I love it, it was a great day. And it's also normal to feel the next day, I hated it, I don't think I can do it. These incongruent feelings often coexist for a few weeks during the internship. Let's hear from some students now who describe their anticipation. This is Aspen.
Yeah, definitely in the beginning I felt both anticipation and excitement. Anxiety was definitely in there. I think coming from a very different field, I wasn't a social worker before this. I was brand new to social work. I was definitely nervous that I wasn't going to be able to swing it, that it was going to be brand new to me and that I wasn't going to like it, or I wasn't going to be able to do it, or just that it wasn't going to work out for me. But there was this whole other side that was really excited about, like, this is brand new and I might love it and it might be amazing. And it was really both emotions kind of stirring around inside of me. So it was a lot going on.
And what happened? So that was Aspen's experience. And Ben shares a different experience, but it has similarities.
I do remember that. I chose my internship my first year based on my previous work experience, and so I was really excited because I thought it would be an excellent fit for me and my skills, but at the same time there were aspects of the social work element that I was really nervous about. I didn't know if I'd be able to perform. I didn't know if I would be able to do it adequately. And so it was a really weird hybrid of I was really excited. I knew I was going somewhere I thought I would like, but at the same time I thought I would be required to do things that I wasn't prepared to do. And so that was a little nerve-wracking for me.
So each student's adjustment to their internship is absolutely going to be unique, but often what we find is that soon thereafter your arrival you become disillusioned. And we have the idea, am I inadequate or is the placement inadequate? And you may again experience a combination of emotion, anger, frustration, confusion. I've heard students felt panic, who they didn't want to get out of the car to go into the internship. It can be mild or it can be rather extreme. It depends on what is happening at the site and with the student. It can be about the demands of the internship or the demands of school, questioning your own competence or the competence of your supervisor. And really the question is, are you going to be able to stay there, is the feeling. And again, students are sharing, Aspen and Ben will share with us that phase.
When I got there, the anxiety and the anticipation continued for a little while, just feeling it out. What is this internship? What am I going to be doing here? How do I feel here? How do I feel about my supervisor, the other staff members? So it was just a lot of feeling it out, and it became a little bit more comfortable once I got there. It wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be at first. So really I just went into a phase of trying to figure out what the internship was going to be and what my role was going to be.
And so Aspen sort of had this wait and see attitude, and not everybody is able to do that, but I think it's a good idea to just sort of see what's happening and not make any snap judgments.
Yeah, there was some disillusionment around my role there. I thought that it was supposed to be, it turned out that I was doing a lot of teaching, and I was starting to view myself as a teacher. It was an after-school program, and so I was concerned that I wasn't getting the social work aspect of it, and that I was just kind of running classes. And it wasn't, at first I didn't think that I was getting any kind of real social work experience, and that started to kind of frustrate me for my first few months.
So this feeling of not being sure it's going to work out is really common, and we want you to understand that. Some of you may not even experience it, and others may experience it in the extreme. But the only way out of it is through it. And so we often talk about the confrontation stages. Knowing what I know now, can I still choose to be here? And this is probably the trickiest part. We want you to confront yourself. We need you to be able to ask for help, to be an adult learner. Look at your own, what you're bringing to the situation. And, you know, sometimes the issues are about your own fears of risk-taking or relationship with authority, your need to do it right. And quite often, a lot of what is triggered within you may well be from the past and need to get addressed. But sometimes it's just a little bit more surface than that, and it's just about clarifying expectations, talking with your field instructor about what they want from you, or as Aspen said, just waiting to see what she could actually do and see where she was going to fit in. Let's hear from the students. Confrontation is not per se as aggressive as it sounds. It's really just naming the situation and talking with your field instructor.
You know, I went through a little bit of a struggle for a while, where it turned out to be more of a community-based internship than I was originally expecting. I thought I was going into something a little bit more on the clinical side, and I just don't think there was a place for that. And I think that the actual placement didn't really understand that either. They didn't really know what my role was going to be, so it was a lot of me trying to figure it out along with my supervisor. You know, what am I good at? What am I interested in? How do we gear this internship individually towards me? So it was a little bit of a struggle, and there were times that I came home and I was like, I don't know about this. Like, is this really what I should be doing? Is this really social work? Is this really what I had planned? And it really wasn't what I had planned and what I thought it was going to be. But I think I eventually got to this point with my supervisor where we kind of decided what I was good at and what I was interested in, and I just went with it. And it was awkward at first. I didn't quite know how to do it at first, and it eventually became kind of fun. And it was new and different and exciting in that respect.
So Aspen really took on the idea that she needed to figure out her place, and she worked with her field instructor to do that. Ben's story's a little bit different.
I brought it up with my supervisor, and I got, again, extremely lucky that she was really, really outgoing, and she also helped bring it up. And, you know, she said that, you know, it will seem like that at first because we're just trying to get you used to the organization and how it runs. And that helped relieve some of that anxiety. And then eventually it did kind of dissipate on its own when I got more comfortable there and I was able to expand my role. I was able to work in a more social work setting, and I did feel like I started to get more out of it and learn more. But I think if I hadn't brought it up, or if I hadn't had a supervisor that was comfortable bringing it up, then it might not have worked out for me.
So both students talk about working with their field instructor, and I know that some students feel uncertain about doing that, and that is why we have a liaison to help you with those conversations, or to just even, you know, sort of practice the conversation before you get into it. The sooner you can adjust and address, as Aspen said, you know, it wasn't what she expected, but she decided to go with it, then you enter into being more open to learning. That's when the open-heartedness really comes in. And in competence, you're going to feel like you're a part of the agency. You'll need less supervision on what to do, and you'll be doing supervision more as a colleague on how you did it. What could you tweak to make it better? And typically, you'll feel like you're doing more worthwhile tasks, and hopefully the other co-workers at the agency know who you are and can rely on you to do a piece of their work. So this stage we'd like to maximize, and students have found over the years that they really do get to that point. Let's hear what happened with Aspen.
That what your work was?
Absolutely. There was definitely a point probably in the winter, middle of the winter maybe, where I definitely felt like a normal staff member, and I was being treated just like the other staff members, and I felt like I had an expertise. So if people came in to our agency, I definitely felt like I could answer questions and I didn't have to go to my supervisor, to another staff member. And I really did feel like I was becoming competent and that I knew what my role was and I was comfortable with that. And I was having fun with it, you know. It was really not as terrifying or disillusioning as I thought it was going to be in the first place.
So once she adjusted to the idea and she knew more about the organization, she started to feel better about the work that she was doing.
Did it feel like you were part of it?
Yeah. Again, I have to keep going back to the fact that I was very lucky with my placement in that at the Bridge Project, the interns are seen as staff, and without the interns, they really couldn't run their programming. So toward the middle end of my internship, I felt like I was a staff member, and I felt like my views were being appreciated and that I was making contributions to the organization. And it didn't feel like I was an intern by the time that I left. Round about winter quarter, I really felt like I was a staff member rather than an intern.
So the good news with these two stories is that they did ultimately get to the point where they felt like they had some command of the role that they were expected to play. And unfortunately, once that starts to take a hold, it often, you start thinking about what's coming next, and we call this the culmination phase. I can't believe it's ending so soon. And there's a lot of pieces to this phase that are really important. You have to know how you terminate. Some people will not want to leave. They'll want to stay and be connected. Others will be like, I'm ready to go. We want everyone to stay through to the end and finish projects, figure out who will pick up the projects they've been working on. And it's a great time to work with your supervisor on anything you haven't been able to accomplish, maybe visiting a similar agency or going to a certain type of meeting or running a group. Whatever it is that is sort of unfinished business, if you have a little time to squeeze it in. And it's important to redefine your relationship with the supervisor, talking about moving forward, asking them to help you see what you do well and what you could use some opportunities to grow in. And, ideally, your internship supervisor can help you think about your next year's internship or an upcoming job, depending on what phase you're in. Culmination, Aspen's got her story. Let's hear it.
Well, at first I was a little sad and a little frustrated because I felt that all of my work was maybe going to be just left. If I left the agency, it was just going to go nowhere after I moved on. So I went through this little phase where I was a little frustrated, and I felt that I really had to make sure that somehow I left almost a legacy. And, not for my own benefit, but for the benefit of the agency, that I had done all this work, and now I wanted to make sure that it was used appropriately and that it continued on and kind of took on a life of its own. So I spent the last couple of months really trying to figure out what I could do to leave my projects for the next intern or the next employee or whoever. So I, created a little book and wrote a lot of letters to the incoming person, and I think that really helped me get closure, because I actually had letters that were, dear new social work intern, this is what I've been doing, this is how you can continue. And I felt that helped me a lot, just kind of let go and realize it's in someone else's hands now. I've done what I can.
And Aspen's feelings are very typical, the want of the student to not have everything that you've worked on go to waste. And Ben talks a little bit more about the emotional attachment to the role.
Especially there, because we work with kids, it was emotional because I had formed these relationships with these kids, and they had formed relationships with me, and so I started to think about ways that I could stay engaged and continue working there, or at the very least continue to volunteer or show up and see the kids, and because they had become such a large part of my life and I had become a part of theirs, that it was really emotional, that transition of termination. It was pretty difficult.
Interestingly, both of them also talked about what happened in terms of culminating, in terms of looking ahead to the future.
So I'm really glad that I had that community experience, but it was a goal for me to get the clinical once I left there. And I think it just started the whole process all over again.
So it really does seem to apply that you're there for a little while and then you'll become into anticipation for the next step. Ben's story's a little bit different.
I should go somewhere else. Or...
Yeah, it did, especially because my track in the program was different than what I was doing there. And so I knew that professionally I had to do something different, but emotionally I really wanted to stay and keep working with those kids specifically, not just in that area, but at that program. And so it did make it very difficult to look for a new placement, and especially a placement that I knew was going to be completely different. It was very difficult, but I had a lot of support both at my internship and at GSSW, so it helped to talk through it and realize that I did need to do something different in order to further my professional development.
So these kinds of dilemmas are really common, and we want you to be able to articulate them, to talk with your field instructor about what you're experiencing. If you need the help of your liaison, the liaison is there to do that for you. Basically, this developmental cycle can repeat over and over, but it builds upon the completion of the previous stage. So if you hold off on your disillusionment or you don't want to confront it, it can really color the experience in a negative way and keep you from progressing. Basically, we know that you're going to talk to your friends, you're going to talk to your family, and that's okay to work through some of the emotion or to name what you think is triggering you in the situation. But really, those people can't do anything to help you with it. And so when these feelings come up, we want you to try to talk with the people directly who can impact this experience, who can help you understand what your role is, what you need to do, and who can make any changes that may make it a more successful internship for you. We're just going to leave you with a few practical steps for each phase. In anticipation, which some of you may still be in, or you may be in disillusionment at this point, the worksheet should help you just address what do you like, what are your concerns. Name that both are happening at the same time. Positive and negative feelings are okay and expected. Disillusionment, do talk to your field instructor, call your liaison if necessary. Really avoid blaming and judging, and trying to see your responsibility in the situation will expedite the process. In terms of confrontation, we think it's useful to just name what's upsetting, ask for clarification in terms of your role. A lot of times it's the timeline. You're wondering, when will you get to do what you thought you were going to do? Typically, just talking through the reality versus what you thought it would be is really useful. And again, liaisons are available if these conversations feel overwhelming for you on your own. Hopefully you can have these conversations with some ease and grace and get through it and move swiftly into your competence phase, where you're maximizing your learning, you're using supervision to learn how to do it better, to muse about your questions around ethics and values, and to explore areas related to the work that you're doing. When you reach the stage of culmination and you start to think about leaving, it's important to identify who will take over your projects. Again, we like naming the emotions and feelings. There's a conflict sometimes between not wanting to abandon clients, but really being ready and happy to leave. And ask your field instructor to help clarify what they think you're good at, because often they have a view of you that's very useful to moving forward in your career and creating a timeline that's clear for your leaving so that everyone knows what's going to happen. I want to thank Ben and Aspen for their contributions to this teaching and learning session, and just bring you back to the worksheet. Now that you've given it some more thought, please take some time to work through the Framing the Field Experience worksheet, and you'll have an opportunity to discuss this in class or use the worksheet to talk to your field instructor. We wish each and every one of you a positive experience, and we want you to know that some of it will be hard, and sometimes we learn through reflection on what was difficult, just as much as we learn through reflection on what worked well. Best of luck to you.